So how do you vanish the Earth, one would ask. To which I would answer, look around you, we'll get there eventually. Sooner than later, as it turns out. But, happy thoughts, I suppose. Happy thoughts. Happy thoughts. Anyway, let's play a game where we blow stuff up. That's always happy, I guess. Okay, so we're looking at Star Soldier Vanishing Earth, released in 1998 for Nintendo 64. Apparently this later got ported to arcades that year, not that it really matters because that was a Japan-only release, and the rest of the world got this Nintendo 64 original from Hudson Soft and Electro Brain, and hey, you know those awesome Star Soldier games on TurboGrafx/PC Engine? That's Vanishing Earth in a nutshell, except instead of beautiful, slick-looking pixel artwork of those earlier titles, you get these garish polygons that look kinda rubbish. And also, the gameplay isn't anywhere as good. I don't know, Star Soldier's track record on Nintendo seems to be 0-2 at this point. I may have said the quiet part loud until I realized there is no quiet part, so there's nothing to worry about. Now, I'm not saying that Star Soldier Vanishing Earth is the drizzling poops or anything like that, because it's not. For better or worse, it's more or less the same style of game featured on the old Turbo, with a slightly angled overhead perspective and a couple extra bits and bobs. You have 3 ships to choose from, each with their own set of weapons, and the game plays out as you would expect this sort of thing to play out. You fly through a stage, you blow stuff up without getting blown up yourself, you collect power-ups to upgrade your weapons until they've reached maximum power, and you continually do this until you reach the end boss where you eventually kill it and move on to the next stage, of which Vanishing Earth possesses 7 for you to conquer. And also 3 secret stages that can be accessed through secret means that the game provides some hint on where to access these things, which is rather thoughtful of them. You have 3 difficulty modes for the main game. Beginner, which maxes out your weapons, gives you 9 lives and a whole bunch of X-arms or bombs. Practically reduces your margin of error to almost 0 unless you get lazy and play a really sloppy game, which can happen when one becomes a bit overconfident with this boosted arsenal. Regular mode, which is your standard difficulty level, and for those wanting more of a challenge, there is the naturally most difficult Master mode. The game also provides the usual 2-minute and 5-minute caravan sessions that let you play quick rounds of an abbreviated Star Soldier run, so nothing new there. And after each run you get a password that I guess you submit to some defunct website somewhere in hopes of recording your score onto some global leaderboard somewhere that's probably long since dead at this point. Well, it's the thought that counts, I suppose, so they tried. Now, I mentioned the gameplay not being as good as the 16-bit titles that preceded this. Well, Vanishing Earth gives you 3 ships to play with, but this essentially boils down to what kind of weapon you want to use. The red ship uses the traditional spread shots, the blue ship uses blue lasers, and the green ship uses bigger spread shots, along with their own special weapons and screen nuking gimmicks. Now, on the one hand, you don't have to worry about collecting the wrong power-up that replaces your preferred weapon with another, always a danger with these sort of games. But on the other hand, you're stuck with that weapon for the rest of your game, and the only way to switch is to get a game over and continue from there, which is fine for casual play, not so fine if you want a high score for your online leaderboard that's no longer active, and really, who cares about a high score on a near 3-decade-old N64 shooter that never saw a sniff of a re-release since its initial release. Control is fine for the most part, fairly responsive, though not quite as snappy as in past games. Vanishing Earth offers the option to let you control the ship with either the D-pad or the control stick, the latter allowing for more sensitive analog control, but not quite as ideal as the D-pad if you're into slight taps of movement here and there. If you take a hit, you lose a life and suffer a reduction in weapons power. In past games, if you were fully powered up and took a hit, you'd suffer a weapons downgrade at most and could get back to full force eventually without dying. But they went old school here, so... Part of that is to emphasize use of the new roll feature, a temporary evasive maneuver that forms a shield that deflects projectiles back at enemies. Not a bad idea on paper, but feels like an afterthought that's easily forgotten about once you get into the nick of things. Vanishing Earth's visuals are a mixed bag. On the one hand, they did a fine enough job of converting some familiar Star Soldier assets into polygonal form, and for what it's worth, there's some nice camera shots for intermissions, boss introductions, things of that nature, and the explosions are nice and pretty for what they are. Also, no noticeable slowdown during my playthrough, which is nice. At the same time though, rather dull looking and sometimes even a bit muddy looking. And there are rare occasions where the visuals are such that some projectiles can blend in with the scenery and as a result look as though they're coming out of nowhere. Not exactly a foreign concept in this genre sadly, but somewhat prevalent here. Visually, it looks fine, nothing really wrong, but you lose a little something going from pixel to polygon. Likewise, the audio component is also somewhat lacking. The Star Soldier games on PC Engine had some banging chiptunes to serenade your explosive escapades, and Vanishing Earth's woeful compositions fail to evoke that same feeling of excitement. It's just bland, aimless background fodder that's drowned out by the somewhat weaker sounding explosive sound effects. Doesn't work for me, brother. Overall, Star Soldier Vanishing Earth is competent enough, but really it's just a reminder of better days. It attempts to replicate the glory days of the series' PC Engine output and manages that to a degree with a couple extra bits here and there to take advantage of the 3D hardware while also managing to be just sorta there. For what it does just fine, but feels more like a pale imitation of what came before rather than a genuine step forward. And while I do appreciate the fact that Vanishing Earth doesn't try to reinvent the Star Soldier formula into an ill-fitting 3D space like some other series tried and just stuck with what brought the series to the dance as it were, it's missing something that made those earlier titles more fun. Worth a shot if you get a chance to play it, but you're not missing much by skipping out either.